Hi guys, it's Lauren. So, after having spoken to so many of you recently this month, uh, it dawned on me while driving my boys to school this morning that I've never actually publicly told my story to anybody. Like, publicly. If people ask me, certain questions, I'll answer them, but I've never actually talked about dramatics of this story and how I've gotten to where I am today. And so, at first I thought, why the hell is anyone going to want to hear your story, Lauren? Like, why? But then, I pushed the negative self-talk aside and thought, if my story can even help one person, then that's okay with me. So here goes nothing. You may or may not need a tissue. I don't know. I might. I don't know. I met this photographer. My husband and I were expecting our first son, and I had hired this photographer to do a maternity shoot. And immediately upon meeting her, it was like she and I were long lost sisters from another mister. In life, I feel like you only get one of those kinds of, friendships. And she was my person, for all those Grey's Anatomy fans out there. She was my person. But anyway, let's go back a little bit. So we had this photo shoot. Come to find out, she was in dire need of someone to actually help her run her Boston-based photography studio. She wanted to concentrate on just taking photos, on just being a photographer. And I, at the time, was looking to do something else. So the timing was perfect. So for the next 3.5 years or so, I not only rebuilt, restructured, ran this six-figure, photography studio. I became best friends with not only the head photographer, the owner, but also the second shooter. And it was a great time in my life. I had found my people. I had found my best friends, and I was doing something that I loved. I finally had figured out what I loved to do. I loved the wedding industry. It was rad. It was awesome. Well, unfortunately, here we go. I actually never cry. So the fact that I'm even crying right now shows you a little bit about how much the situation has impacted me as a person, right? All good things, unfortunately, either come to an end or they take another path. And, being best friends and business partners doesn't always work, unfortunately. It's just one of those rules that you hear, and, you want to be that friggin' unicorn. You want to prove everybody wrong, and you're like, no, screw you. I can totally be best friends. And, unfortunately, it didn't work that way for me. So I, in a single moment, upon quitting my job, not only did I quit my job that I loved, but I lost my two best friends in the process. And that was one of the most devastating times in my life. It sucked. It was a really dark period. But like a freaking phoenix, whatever. They're colorful and pretty and glittery and whatever. You know what? Phoenix may not be glittery, but mine is. So whatever. I rose up from those freaking ashes. In 2016, I launched LDC and Company. It's a wedding planning business. I had no idea, no clue if it was even going to work. I went from having 0 clients, zero, zip, zilch, nada, to ending my very first year with 6 weddings. The second year, I'm ending it with 13. And I blew my seemingly ridiculous profit goals out of the water because I used the same exact model and techniques that I had established for this photographer. We had reached page 1 of Google search when you typed in Boston wedding photographer. That is something that is almost unheard of. But I had to teach myself SEO. Sure enough, I had to teach myself all of these things that were necessary in order to run a successful wedding business. I fell into the industry. It's not like I was, this marvelous photographer or like this kick-ass videographer. No, my background, my degree, are you ready for this? Is in psychology and Holocaust and genocide studies. That's it. It's not in business. It's not in marketing. It's not in anything else other than relationships with people. That's what psychology is all about. The behavior of people. It took me the past 5 years to realize that working with brides isn't what lights me up. No. What lights me up and makes me so happy is the fact that I genuinely want to help others. And so for me, that translates into helping clients run their businesses better. I finally figured out that I want to show people how easy it can be, how stress-free it can be to run a business. The problem that most creatives have is that they're a creative. So let's use a photographer for instance, okay? So a photographer knows how to take a kick-ass photo, right? But they probably don't know how to walk into a corporation and be a kick-ass CEO, right? And it's just the opposite too. For a CEO that, is running a corporation, they probably don't know how to take a kick-ass photo, right? Like, let that sink in for a second. Just because you take a photo doesn't mean that you can take a kick-ass photo and you know how to run a kick-ass business. It's not the same thing. You're using two different sides of your brain. The creative aspect and then the logical, analytical aspect. They're not the same thing. So no matter how hard people try to tell you that, let me show you how to get more clients, that's not even beginning to scratch the surface on what the actual problem is. And the actual problem is teaching you how to successfully run a business from step one. No one teaches you that. My templates and my products set anyone apart from their competition because of my ability to connect with people. Like, that's it. That's what I want to teach you guys. Like, that's what I want to teach all of my wedding bosses, is how to successfully run your wedding business. Like, that's it. Now, I remember, telling people, when I was working for this photographer, I'm the studio manager for, a Boston wedding photographer, yay! And they would always look at me and be like, the fuck? Like, what do you do? Like, answer the phone? No. I do a lot more than answer the phone. In order to run a successful business, there are two parts to running any wedding business. Two, okay? It's knowing your craft, knowing what, your zone of genius is. The other side, though, is how you run your business, how your systems are set up, how you're being found online. There's just so many different things that, if you don't take the time to learn them or, try to figure it out on your own, you're not going to learn it. And so that's the beautiful thing about Wedding Boss, is that I had to learn it in order to run a successful Boston-based business. It's a very saturated market and it's in a major city. So in order to stand out from the competition, I had to teach myself those things. I had to figure out, what are keywords? What's SEO? Why should I care? Where am I going to spend my money marketing? A giveaway, how can I get that out to the people? How can I expand our tribe? What do the people really want to know? What do our clients really want? Pricing. That's one in all of itself. So I've had a lot of people talk to me recently, and after me actually coming out and telling them bits and pieces of my story, have realized, holy shit, this industry that we're in, it needs everything that you have to offer, Lauren. You have found probably the biggest pain point that all wedding creatives face, and that's running the business. That's actually knowing what you need to be doing. That's why I'm here, and that's why I do what I do. So, if my story has resonated with anyone, please feel free to comment, to, reply, to send me an email. Because like most of you know, the wedding industry can be a really lonely place. It's nice to know that you're not on your own island.